Hey, welcome back to another edition of Everything Football 62. I'm your host, Jonathan Big Tex Johnson, aka Uncle Tex, aka Professor Tex. Before we start, push that like button, subscribe to the page. Got any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that? Leave it down below. We can rap about it, debate about it, have a little nice little banter back and forth. As you guys well know, this whole thing, Baker Mayfield and what he did Thursday. Dude, I had actually went to bed. The game was kind of boring to me. Wasn't nothing really going on and whatnot. That's a great thing about football. And it was like, I don't know, about 7 or 8 minutes left in the game. I was like, let me take my butt to bed. I'd had a couple anyway, so I was like, I'm going to bed. Raiders got this and whatnot. I get up the next morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. That's the time I normally get up. 5 o'clock in the morning, get up, getting ready to get myself together. Getting ready to go get my kid a breakfast burrito, me and a breakfast burrito to have something to sit down and have a little breakfast and whatnot. Look at my phone. These jokers won. The Rams won. And mind you now, Mayfield just came in, it was a day or two. And Mayfield didn't even know if he even from the get claimed off waivers, he took a airplane flight out there and just did that. See, did that 1 or 2 days of practice. He don't know half the guys on the team and come up with it was like 16-3, and they come up and they end up winning the game. And I'm like, good for Baker. Good for Baker. And if you guys actually go back to when he was getting drafted, I did shows on him. And people were saying a lot of shit about Baker. And I was like, but the thing I like about Baker, he's a gutsy dude. He's gutsy. He has a cocky and an arrogance with him. And I think that kind of rubbed people the wrong way, especially in Cleveland. But Baker, he was kind of like a walk-on. Nobody really wanted to deal with him when he was coming out of high school and whatnot. And they got some good quarterbacks coming out of Lake Travis and whatnot there in Austin. And, they did not really deal with him at all. Quiet as kept. That's something that that's something that they basically didn't do. He wasn't really highly recruited and whatnot. Even though he won, he passed for some nice yards and everything of that nature. So when we look at that, when we look at that particular situation with Baker, it's the thing that you got to understand and realize about that guy. That guy's a fighter. And then when I think he got hurt or something at Texas Tech and they basically didn't give him his job, he ends up going to Oklahoma. And that was his dream school to go to anyway, because he loved Oklahoma as a kid coming up. So the thing about with Baker, he goes there, and we all know what he did in Oklahoma. He's a legend in Oklahoma. They had Georgia, but Georgia just enforced their will on him in that playoff game. And that's about as close as Oklahoma is going to get any team for Big 12, because, like I said, they don't play defense, which is why they will never win a national championship until they start playing defense again in that particular conference, which I don't think they really never have, but Southwest Conference days and whatnot. So when we speak about that, dude's a fighter. He doesn't give up. He's a legend at Oklahoma. He won a Heisman. Now, I don't think Baker should have went number 1 overall. I don't think he was the best quarterback in that particular draft. But be that as it may, he did put in his years there as a college quarterback. So when we look at it from that particular situation there, and what he does and what he's accomplished. So let's look at Baker as a Cleveland Brown. Baker Mayfield, he took over his rookie year. Can't remember his man's name, but he took over. They ended up going 6-7. He threw for 27 touchdowns. I think it might have been a record, if I'm not mistaken. What do you expect? Did good and whatnot. Second year, they go 6-10. They lose 3 more games than what they did when he was starting in the 13 games that he started. 3,827 yards, threw for more yards. Touchdowns was down slightly bit. Interceptions went up. They were a little shaky with him, but it's just his second year. Third year, he did exactly what you figured he would do. That's because I always give a quarterback, got to give him at least 3 years and go from there. Baker, they go in 2020, 11-5, 3,563 yards, 26 touchdowns. 8 picks, and they go to the playoffs and they win a playoff game. Now they in that talking about the playoffs and whatnot. Let me see what he do with regular season, playoffs. Had 2 playoff games, rushing, receiving. I don't know why they got that stuff like this, but anyway. But he ends up doing this thing. So Baker is he is a guy that he's a gutsy guy. He doesn't say quit, doesn't say no. He tries to make things happen. He's a gutsy quarterback. I give him that. He is he kind of was lumped in that whole Johnny Manziel thing, but he's not as athletic as Johnny Manziel. I don't think he has as strong as his arm as Manziel. But at the same time, they gave up on him very quick. Went 11-5. So 2021 was not a good year for Baker. As we go to the stats real quick. Baker would go 6-8. 3,010 yards, 17 touchdowns, 13 picks. Not a good year for Baker. Not a good year at all for him because that was per se kind of like a contract year. And they didn't trust him. And Cleveland has had such bad luck with quarterbacks over the years to the point, you have a short leash there. And so it made sense for them to do what they did, to have an opportunity to get Deshaun Watson. I'll talk about him a little later because I'm going to talk about various topics here. But to see him go over the Rams and do what he did at that time and was a 98-yard drive, it's like masterful. He did what he needed to do. He's a gutsy guy. He's always been a gutsy guy. I've always given him that. You know what I'm saying? I give him that. And so he's a gutsy quarterback. And what I think Cleveland probably grew tired of him and the damn commercials with his wife. That was tiresome. I hated him. But that's neither here nor there. And they blame him for a lot of things. But like I say, he doesn't play on defense. That's another subject within itself. So it was good to actually see him do what he did. I enjoy it. So I got a chance to watch the highlights and whatnot because I thought the game was basically over because I'm like, what are you expecting this guy to do off of a day or two of being on the team? You don't even know anybody. The terminology is going to be different than what it was in Carolina. Mind you now, Baker Mayfield was the first pick of the 2018 draft. So in a 4 or 5 year span, Mayfield is on his 3rd team. He goes to Carolina, unfortunately lays an egg there. And it's crazy. It's crazy. It really is crazy. Because I didn't think he was going to do a whole lot over in Carolina anyway, because it's just like that just wasn't really a fit for him as far as I was concerned. Yeah, Mayfield, the baggage and everything like that to come along with him. And he comes off a little snotty a certain ways when he gets upset. And I guess I get it. But as a quarterback, man, this comes along with the territory. Right? So it was deep to see that. But I was glad to see what he did. And I think he could be a solid quarterback. Nothing, almost a Jim McMahon type of quarterback. If you got a team that got a strong defense, a nice running game, and he doesn't have to try to do all that, he can still basically make some plays, make some throws where he's able to sit up there and possibly win. He had a bunch of errant throws last year and whatnot, cost his team some games and stuff like that. But at the same time, like I say, again, he doesn't play defense. And like I said, so it was actually good to see him do that and whatnot. And I think he could probably possibly be a starter. But I think that Cleveland fans just grew tired of him. They grew tired of the commercials. And they grew tired. But this is the thing. Mayfield was hurt. I forget the injury. I know injury said, I think something had to do with the shoulder. I'm not sure. But he was hurt. And this is one of the things as a football player, you're taught to suck it up. Even in today's game, you still, you suck it up. And this is what I think I always go back and say, this is, I think, what hurt Cam Newton. As a quarterback, if your shoulder and all that stuff like that, rotator cuff, all that stuff starts messing with you, you need to take a step back because your game is based on being your thrower. You throw the ball. If you're not able to put the zip on the ball, if you can't put the touch on the ball, if you can't, you have to sit back and get that thing healed. Otherwise, even though your toughness is looked upon as some great stuff, but it's like at the same time, if you cannot perform, there's a problem. There's going to be a problem. And that's what happened, I think, with Baker. And they were already a little shaky with him with his second year, but his third year they go 11-5, won the playoff game, if I'm not mistaken, and whatnot. So in the end, Baker basically, in a nutshell, what he would end up doing is hurt. He actually, to me, he hurt himself. Then not getting along with OBJ, and what I think would actually seal Baker Mayfield's what sealed his fate was the fact that OBJ leaves, because I heard that was pretty cool. But I think what he did or what happened, and they don't really talk about it. I heard in a few circles here and there, where he basically was like, OBJ, okay, fine, but if you're not open, I'm not throwing you the ball. But OBJ wants the ball. Okay, fine, he wants the ball, but I'm not going to give him the ball if he's not open. He had Landry there, and he had OBJ, and they thought everything was going to be all good. Again, don't play defense though. So it's like, it was an issue there. He leaves, go to the Rams, sort of resurrects his career, and wins the Super Bowl. Even though he got hurt, even though he was going off, and he was going off, starting to go off, got hurt. Super Bowl. Now he's on all the stuff he's doing now, which I'm gonna talk about a little bit later as well. But this is what we're talking about. So I think when he basically was like, well, and that sealed his fate because OBJ leaves, goes to the Rams, they win a Super Bowl. That sealed his fate. And it's crazy on how petty some of these things end up being with some of these players in these NFL teams, because it's like, it's like the guy, the general manager, John, whatever his name is, for the Titans, once my man, AJ, was it Brown, John, whatever his name is, the wide receiver. My man dominates them. Mike Vrabel had to give him a hug. They fired dude the next day, the general manager, because the general manager in his thing, he's like, well, we can easily replace him. No, you're not going to replace somebody like my man, like AJ. You're not going to replace him. It's not going to happen. Now, me personally, I'm not going to give him a whole rack of bread, because he did have and I talked about this before, right? I did talk about this before, that Brown, right? He, like I said, literally is a running back playing wide receiver. 6'1", 225, 226 pounds. You got him and Deebo Samuel. These guys are running backs actually playing wide receiver, which is deadly, right? He's at 61 receptions for 950 yards and 9 touchdowns. So he's having a Pro Bowl year, right? But if you look at the things that he did over his years, 1,051 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1,075 yards, 11 touchdowns. Tennessee goes 63, 869. I think he missed some games due to injury. That general manager, well, we can replace, let him go. We'll be fine. He gets fired because A.J. Brown goes off. He goes off on the Titans with Eagles playing them. He goes off on them because the general manager told the owner, we don't need him. We can find somebody to replace him. Okay. Well, he goes off, he gets fired. So the same thing to me kind of somewhat happened dealing with that of Baker Mayfield, in the sense of with the OBJ thing, where it's like this dude goes off. So instead of the general manager, we're gonna get rid of the quarterback. Now you cannot, like, if I have an opportunity to get Deshaun Watson, we're gonna get him. We're going to go get him. But kudos to Baker Mayfield. I don't know where this is going to go. They were getting ready to put Matthew Stafford in the Hall of Fame because they won a Super Bowl. And now he's hurt. He's basically out for the rest of the year, if I'm not mistaken. Possibly. So right now, Baker Mayfield is basically putting his resume out there and doing job interviews. That's kind of how you do it when you're in sports. So that's good for him. I'm glad to see it. I hope he lands on a decent team, because I think he's somewhat of a solid quarterback. He can be in the right situation where he don't have to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. Because in the NFL, it just doesn't work that way. You shouldn't have to do all that. Certain quarterbacks can do that, but certain quarterbacks can't. Kind of a raw deal, but he bought some of the stuff on himself. But at the same time, it's like they did do him a little dirty in Cleveland. All right. Kind of switching to my man, Deshaun Watson. I will say this about Deshaun Watson. Because it's so crazy because people were sitting up there saying, oh, Deshaun Watson, oh, he was this, he was that. Deshaun Watson has not played football since 2020. He hasn't played football since 2020. How do you not play football in 2020 and you expect him to do all this? And they gave 11-game suspension. This man has not almost played football in football years in almost 2 years. He's rusty. What do you expect him to be? I expect him to go off on Cincinnati. I just expected that. For whatever reason, I could be dead wrong, which is cool, but I expect him to go off because when Deshaun Watson is on, Deshaun Watson is one of the best in the league when he's on. You know, when he's on, he really is. He's a joy to watch, and unfortunately, all these things are happening to the young man, and maybe he should have some better people around him that would hip him to the treachery as an athlete and the treachery of women, how they call themselves rolling with an athlete like him. And the young man, he wants to do this, wants to do that, whatever. But 11-game suspension. I think he's going to be fine, and he can easily be a legend. Went out. I think he has the ability to help that team do because Cleveland's not a bad team. But what Cleveland has to do is they have to be smart about how they use him and how they use their running game and how they play defense. Guys on their defensive side of the ball, especially Myles Garrett, them guys got to come to play, man. And they got to put pressure on somebody like Joe Burrow today. That should be the Jim Dandy of the game today. You know? But I say this time and time again, and I will continue to say it. Rightfully, not done rightfully, the way that he's been, the way that they projected him, all the stuff they're coming up and whatnot. I will say this, and I will keep saying it, I will say this to the day that I die. The Houston Texans did this on purpose. They did this on purpose because he simply was tired. He said, y'all taking everybody away from him. And he didn't want to play for the franchise no more. So they dug up dirt on him. And they made dirt up on him. A man of that nature, that man's young, he's a millionaire, he's a good-looking kid, never no issues with no woman, and all of a sudden it's come up. I already did a show on this. So I expect big things from him. Really do. I expect him to go off today. I really do. I think you can do that on Cincinnati. Because I don't think Cincinnati is a type of team that I look at that is lucky. When Joe Burrow is on, he's on, but he's the most sacked quarterback. Their line is not that good, and whatnot. But they're getting Mixon back with Saraji Pijan. I might have said the man's name wrong. And they can be a little dangerous. Cincinnati can be. But I think you can put pressure on them when these guys come to play. But like I've said before, man, these guys, I look for a big game from him today. I could be wrong, but I honestly look for a big game from him today. But like I said, going back to Baker Mayfield, I honestly feel as though that with somebody like a Baker Mayfield, this is an interview. He's going through interviews right now. And he'll fit someplace where he does not have to throw the ball, lay low, go in there with a workman's or construction workers type of mentality, get it done, go home, take your lunch pail, bring it in there, lunch pail type quarterback. Nothing fancy, nothing all that shit with commercials and all that. He doesn't need to go through all that. Do all that shit afterwards, man, the off season or whatever, but not during the season. And I honestly think he'll be a decent quarterback. So it was kind of good to see that with him. The OBJ thing, man. DeMarcus Lawrence said it good. If it's going to be a damn a farce, if it's going to be all this media bullshit, I personally, as a Cowboys fan, they don't need it because that two-headed monster and that damn defense, and if that develops that killer instinct that you need as a quarterback to put the dagger in somebody and just be perfect, and just like, nah, y'all ain't gonna stop this. They don't need him. And then he don't want to play until the playoffs. What kind of shit is that? I've talked plenty of times about OBJ. And great talent, man. A great talent. He's a great talent. But I've said, he's John Jefferson from the Chargers from back in the day, for those who know, I'm an old head. My man just, like I said, he's hurt. And he's the prettiest girl. He's the prettiest girl right now. Everybody wants him. And he wants to go to a place where he can sit up there and get him a ring. Another ring. Because right now, at this particular point, well, if I can get some rings, that's going to talk about the 2 years that I haven't basically played football. Basically 3 if you go back. So, but when he's out there, he's something. So we'll see what happens with him. I don't think they need him. It'd be a nice addition. But with what CeeDee Lamb is doing, CeeDee Lamb is about to probably, if CeeDee Lamb keeps doing what he's doing, CeeDee Lamb will probably finish with 13, 14, but at least 1,300 yards. It's already almost at 1,000. 1,300 yards and about maybe 10 touchdowns, 10 to 12 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb is having a Pro Bowl year. Easily. So they don't really need him. But he would be a nice addition, but they don't really need him. Okay? And like I said, man, kudos to Baker Mayfield. Hope everything goes right for the kid and whatnot. And we'll see what happens. Like I tell you guys all the time, there's no greatest of all time. There's no GOAT as long as time is still going on. Like I tell you guys all the time, numbers don't lie and get emotional. People do. I'll holler at you guys later.